Knowing how to dress nicely is a learning curve. So instead of that, I was like, I need to find a woman who can make me dress nicer. As soon as I made that decision, you were the next woman I came across. I was like, oh, she'll make me look nice. I think I'll shack up with her for the rest of my life.
Oh my God. So you're with me so I can help you buy your clothes?
So you can help my clothes look good, help my wardrobe. Because what we wear is a big part of our identity.
Yeah, sometimes like what you wear shows like your fears and your aspirations.
You know, and that kind of leads me to how a woman dresses. Like, who is she dressing for? Is she dressing for attention from men? Is she dressing to impress other women? Is she dressing to feel good about herself? What's your relationship with that? I never felt like it was criticized, because even with my ugly shoes, at a certain point, you say, you know what? Like, I think you even said this, you know, you're such a good looking guy. I want you to have like really nice looking shoes. And you know what? Now, rather than feeling like you had criticized my terrible choice in shoes, you were elevating my entire appearance by suggesting that I deserve to have really nice boots. And so what did we do? We went out and bought really nice boots.
You know, one
Two
thing I learned from my grandmother is about how you can say the same words, but with a different tone of voice, it's something different. So rather than sounding like like I'm criticizing you, I can use the same word, but from a place of love, and you hear it from a place of love.
You need new shoes, or you need new shoes. Like you are a good
looking,
good looking guy. You work hard. You deserve a nice pair of boots. Let's go find some nice boots for you.
I don't know about deserving, but you.
Yeah, that's probably not the word we would use. Is deserving. You deserve whatever you tolerate.
Topic for another time. But so we've talked about the way you dress.
Yeah.
What about the way I dress changed since we started dating?
You know what? Not a lot, actually.
Today you helped me decide what I was gonna wear, because I'm wearing a green dress inside and it's cold, and I was just like, you know what, I'm kind of feeling cold, I'm just gonna put on my black jacket on top. And you were like, wear the pink sweater, and I was like, pink and green?
To which I replied, pink and green actually look very nice together.
So I would never on my own choose this. This is not an outfit that I would go for.
So here's the thing. I also, I do have aesthetic taste that I think is not bad, but to translate it to myself was difficult. So when you're getting dressed, you're like, what looks better, this, or this? Most of the time, I will be fairly clear on what my preference is or what I think looks better if I actually have a preference. Problem is, you actually have a very nice wardrobe and you also look very good. So you'll put on 3 things and you say, like, how does this look? And I say, you look amazing. And then you come back and try something else. And what about this? I'm like, you look amazing.
And then it's so frustrating.
And then you stop believing me. You're like, you don't believe me. I'm like, wait, you have a lot of nice clothes. You dress nicely.
I have a disclaimer.
Look beautiful.
I have a disclaimer about my clothes. So my best friend has really nice clothes, and I get a hand-me-down from my best friend.
Right. It's not like you get many used clothes from her either. It's more like, I wore it once, not quite for me, and rather than taking the time to go to the store to return it, I'll just give it to Sarah.
I'm just giving it to Sarah. So I've been so lucky that I get really nice stuff from her. She's a little bit skinnier than not a little. She's very skinny than I am, and I'm not skinny. So some things like jeans we don't share, but dresses and sweaters.
But you also do something where you dress generally with color. From what I've gathered is that American women tend to go more towards blacks and less color. And because you go color, it's something that somebody bought and was like, that was great. Like, even if we go to secondhand stores, which is part of like a belief system of, rather than more fast fashion and cheap, maybe nicely designed clothes, but
so if I don't get my clothes from my friend, I will go to a secondhand store, and that's where I will buy my stuff.
But I was going to say that things of color, people will buy those and then not wear them as much as they would like their black pants or their whatever. So therefore, you can go and get nice dresses and skirts that look fantastic on you.
I had a rule in my 20s where it's like I would not wear anything that was dark, like black or gray or like not colorful, like on top. I just felt like it didn't do me justice.
Yeah.
I was just like, I want colorful. I'm also African. I just kind of felt like what I bring is color. And so I don't wear anything that's like, I will not combine gray and black at all. So it's like either I'm wearing colorful pants or like mostly like just something that's plain and something that's colorful.
I think there would have been a time in my life when sort of pushed towards wearing one thing or another, I might have gotten defensive about or felt like there was a control. And I think that's one thing that you brought up before we started was when you have input in that way, it can be easy for that to become controlling, right? Or for another person to feel controlled, or for a sort of a letting go of a certain amount of autonomy. And I think as men too, there's often, and certainly not always, but often, and I guess I should say, at least as heterosexual men, a sense of sometimes if I put too much into my appearance, does that mean I care too much about something that is a little bit like superficial or whatever? And I feel like kind of coming up to with that balance is important. And also like actually how we do, what that's like so that it's not a controlling thing. Oh, my wife's making me wear this, or, my wife's taking me shopping, or I see men sometimes who are just like, I don't do my shopping. My wife does my shopping, as though that's sort of a release of any autonomy or whatever. And I don't think it has to be that way, but I think it's also important to bring awareness to that,
Yeah, I think for me, even that awareness of like having that balance was like when it comes to makeup. Until I was like 30, I didn't put on makeup because I didn't want to feel like before I go to the store that makeup was really controlling like what I had to do. So I was just like, I didn't have a good balance, and I was just like, I'm not gonna put on makeup. But then there's a good balance of like, I can put on a little bit of makeup and that doesn't have to like control how I feel all the time. There's a place and time to put on makeup, and there's a place not to put on makeup.
And that kind of leads me to another thing that I see sometimes, which is this kind of thing of like how a woman dresses. Like, who is she dressing for? Is she dressing for attention from men? Is she dressing to impress other women? Is she dressing to feel good about herself? What's your relationship with that?
I really dress to make myself feel good. So, and I realized this when I was in college, and I was just like, on days where I was like not feeling like amazing, I would put on some heels. I would put on like days where I woke up when I'm like, I'm not inspired today. I'm not inspired to go to work. I would rather stay in bed. That morning, I made sure that I put on some makeup, I put on some heel, and I dressed nice. Was I doing for anyone else? No, I was doing it for myself because I wanted to feel good. I wanted to feel good in like make myself feel good on days where I didn't have that internal inspiration. And those days happen all the time. So when people say like, I'm dressing for a man, I don't know, maybe some women do, but I think majority of women really actually are dressing to feel inspired, and sometimes like I feel like I dress nice when we go out on a date because I want to feel good on a date.
You do dress nice when you go out on a date, and you want me to dress nice because you want me to look good next to you. But even there are times like, we work from home. So very often I could literally be working in my underwear most of the day if I wanted to. Unless it's in front of my podcast, in which case I could just be in my underwear on the bottom and you wouldn't know. You can't see that. So we'll just leave that up to your imagination to decide. But like there are times where business isn't going well. If I'm feeling a little frustrated, I actually get dressed and put on, like I'll clean the bottom of my shoes. We don't wear shoes inside. So I'll like clean the bottom of my nice boots and I put on my nice boots and I get dressed up nicely and I come and I sit even at the kitchen table if that's where I'm working, or I sit at my desk and say, you know what, I'm going to dress myself. And it does have an impact on how I feel.
It does have an impact. Yeah. I sometimes wake up and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to dress like I'm going to the office next to the kitchen table because it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
I really don't think that I dress for anyone else. I think I dress based on how I'm feeling inside.
One of the things that you kind of taught me, or one of the things I learned in being with you, is that I feel differently based on the way I dress. And sometimes it's not major, sometimes it's very subtle, but subtle things over a long period of time have a big impact.
They do.
and even the attention that I give to it is saying, like I care about myself so that to the point where I'm going to present myself in the best way possible. And I think that's important,
Yeah, that's really important.
So, by the way, we'll take a little sort of moment here to say thank you for listening to our podcast and tuning into The Interracial Couple. As you know, we record every week. We release on Tuesdays. And the podcast is available pretty much wherever you get podcasts, whether it's Stitcher or
On our website too. You can go check out our website.
theinterracialcouple.com. Find us on YouTube, youtube.com/theinterracialcouple, and pretty much most places on social media that way as well. We'd love a little bit of love wherever you listen to your podcasts, or if it's on YouTube. If you can give us a thumbs up, a 5-star, we would appreciate that, and make sure to subscribe.
Just email us with a feedback of how we're doing. We've been doing this for what, 9 months now?
We're 9 months in, yeah.
We're 9 months in, so give us some love, give us some feedback.
Yeah, we keep growing strong. We're building slowly by slowly, and also really kind of looking at what are the best ways to make sure that we are speaking to our audience's questions, needs. And so the feedback that we get, the notes that we get, we do Facebook Lives and we get questions and thoughts from people there too, and messages that we get. Those things help us be more informed for how we share and what we bring to the podcast. So absolutely be in touch. And thank you for being with us.
Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Bye-bye.